all for your testimony. Mr. Waltzer, I wanted to talk a little bit with you about the different standards that we've been hearing about today. We've heard commercially available, technically ready, but the EPA really does look at whether the technology is adequately demonstrated, which of course is different in legal terms. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. The Clean Air Act very clearly allows EPA to consider how the technology applies in other related industries. And I think in some area there's a bit of a gray area for some relating to your earlier question, Mr. Chairman. So for example, Dakota Gasification is an excellent example of a project which is at very large scale, captures 2 million tons of CO2 per year and sends it up a pipeline to Saskatchewan for EOR and sequestration. The methane that comes out of that coal gasification project is delivered in the pipeline to power plants. It's very similar to a power plant that was proposed by Tenaska, which would have simply taken that same industrial configuration and put the power plant closer to that methane, the coal to methane project. So from a practical perspective, it's not the Dakota Gasification plant, I believe, clearly demonstrates that one could develop a power plant today with commercial guarantees with CCS. In fact, that even though Kemper does have commercial guarantees, I think the Dakota Gasification plant clearly demonstrates that CCS at a power plant configuration is in operation today.
Thank you. And I'm going to follow up on that a bit. If finalized, the rule would require that all new coal plants meet an emission rate between 1,050 and 1,100 pounds of CO2 per megawatt hour. So that's an approximate 40% reduction below uncontrolled emission levels, as I understand it.
That's right.
But in addition, the rule allows for up to 8 years to meet the standard. Can you discuss how that provision was considered in EPA's determination of feasibility and cost?
Sure. That provision is, from our perspective, one of the key aspects that makes this rule, the design of this rule very smart, and speaks to the technical feasibility of being able to comply with the rule. With that 8-year provision that allows a project developer to do two things. First, it allows them to have flexibility as they're building their first, second, third, or nth of a kind project. It also allows the developer market flexibility to be able to take advantage of operating the plant in the early years without CCS and adding CCS later, which might provide financial value. In fact, it's that second component which allows, as our cost analysis shows, for a project to be able to comply with that standard and have the cost of electricity at that coal unit be 13% above the baseline cost of electricity for an uncontrolled coal unit.
Thank you. I have another question I want to get in. So there was a project that American Electric Power was doing. Their chairman in 2011, Michael Morris, said that as a regulated utility, it's impossible to gain regulatory approval to recover our share of the cost for validating and deploying the technology without federal requirements to reduce greenhouse gas emissions already in place. The uncertainty also makes it difficult to attract partners to help fund the industry's share. So I wanted you to address briefly the unless we require carbon emission limits on new coal power plants, does the technology stand as much of a chance of wider deployment, and why?
Well, I do agree with that, but let me address one important aspect of what you just raised. I would urge the committee to consider that, in fact, this rule is good for the coal industry, and let me explain that counterintuitive view. First, the rule provides both certainty and flexibility for new coal plants regarding CO2 emissions. If you don't have that certainty, you're not going to be able to finance new coal plants. No financing, no plants. It's basically that simple. Second, the rule does something that might have been hard to imagine 30 years ago. For the first time, new coal plants and new gas plants are going to have the same emissions profile. That's important for coal's long-term sustainability. And third, gas prices are so low that no one is building new coal, and that's true without CCS, but this rule helps catalyze technology advancement so that when fuel prices are more advantageous, coal is even better positioned within the market.
Thank you, and I see my time has expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.